Tatsuya Yoshikawa is one of Capcom's most distinctive character designers. You've seen his work in the Breath of Fire series, Devil May Cry, Megaman and others. And there's something unmistakably elegant about his line work. His characters strike a balance between strength and grace, wrapped in a style that feels both classical and experimental. And yes, as we go deeper, you'll notice certain recurring artistic interests. When we break down and analyze Yoshikawa's art style, one thing immediately stands out: form. He has an obsession with curves, angles, and proportions that feel sculpted rather than simply drawn. I used to draw everything on paper, but it took a really long time. So now I draw the main lines in pencil and then scan it into the computer and start the coloring process from there. Before we dive into his style, it's worth clearing up a common misconception, especially for those less familiar with Breath of Fire. While Yoshikawa designed the different versions of Ryu, the iconic blue-haired protagonist, the choice of color and recurring aesthetic wasn't his decision. This is important because it shows how Yoshikawa, who is responsible for most of the aesthetics, works within a set creative limits on the recurring characters, but does pivot in these elements through his own designs. At first I was just drawing as much as possible every day, but when Akira Yasuda asked me, "Do you want to draw well or design well?" it completely changed my perspective and style. Since then, I focus less on technical skill and more on creating designs with meaning. I trust my instincts and aim to draw things I personally find beautiful and worth owning. There's a clear evolution between his earlier and later works, and I appreciate both for their unique qualities. For example, the GBA version of Breath of Fire 2 showcased a slightly different aesthetic for the shamans than the original version did. Personally, I think Yoshikawa has a natural talent for drawing feminine characters with great subtlety, gesture, and appeal. Now, does he have recurring stylistic trademarks? Absolutely. It's in the shapes. While his designs change a lot from project to project, he consistently favors simplified, spherical forms throughout. You see it in the eyes, hair volumes, and body structures. He leans towards tall legs, slender frames, and strong hourglass silhouettes. This focus on form carries over into his facial designs as well. His eyes aren't always massive or exaggerated, but they pierce, sharp, focused, and framed by precise facial structure. We took a lot of influence from facial expression from manga. I tried to incorporate the unique strength of handwritten lines as seen in manga. We experimented with this approach a little in Breath of Fire 4 in the in-game graphics. And I decided to keep going with the 5th installment as well. At first glance, some might think his designs are a bit repetitive across the series. But if you really study his work, you realize his characters are anything but generic. His style doesn't rely on repeating cookie-cutter characters. Instead, each design is carefully tuned, striking a balance between familiarity and individuality. If Kazuya Takahashi excels at world building through his cast, and Tetsuya Nomura leans towards highly individualized characters like we saw in Final Fantasy VII, I'd say Tatsuya Yoshikawa sits somewhere in the middle. His characters clearly belong to the same world, but with plenty of unique touches and variation. Though that's open to debate. I personally think there's a lot to discover in his concept art for the reimaginings of character designs. For example, Bosch from Dragon Quarter is essentially Bo in human form. You even see that Bo reference pop up again in one of the anniversary pieces. You can also see this in his character design choices. Rival characters like Rei in Breath of Fire 2 feel far less compatible than later counterparts like Tipo or Fu Lu, who strike a much stronger rivalry dynamic through design alone. They're similar enough to feel connected, yet different enough to stand apart. Yoshikawa also contributed a lot of monster art as well, with his dragon designs being especially noteworthy. Maybe it's just because dragons are always cool, but I really like how his approach evolved with each installment. moving from softer forms to more intricate, scaly details as his style matured. Overall, he has a real love for symbolism. Without going into a deep dive, I remember reading a Dead blog post that unpacked all the subtle visual cues in characters like Fulu and his gangster dogs, showing just how layered his design thinking can be. That said, in most of his other projects, he's usually working within the boundaries of pre-existing designs. With Breath of Fire, he had a bit more creative freedom to really put his own spin on things. That attitude of not wanting to do what others are doing has been our mindset for a very long time. Let others make whatever they want, and we'll do what we think is fun, you know. And so he did. Like I mentioned earlier, the man knows how to draw women. Honestly, I think he's a little bit obsessed, especially with goddesses and deities, often blending elemental or animal attributes into their designs. But hey, if you enjoy what you do, why not go all in? Now that he's freelancing, he pretty much draws whatever he wants and shows it on his social media accounts. All power to him. Also, I got to say, I really love the recent Breath of Fire anniversary art he's been putting out. Clearly, he knows how to draw men as well. To me, Yoshikawa feels like one of those rare artists who could teach anatomy and design without saying a word. Just hand you a drawing and let the form speak for itself. Creativity loves constraints after all. I'm blijf nog altijd GP first. And while Capcom and other RPG studios have plenty of excellent character designers, I keep finding myself coming back to Tatsuya Yoshikawa. Every time I study his work, there's something new I notice, and something new to appreciate.